Chapter 1121. Olivia's voice was like a gentle breeze that swept all the tension away. Even the frown on Mason's face faded. When Mason was angry, people who knew him would never approach him. Even Tatiana wouldn't go to him when he was enraged. Ethan thought Mason would ask Olivia to go away. Instead, Mason said calmly, "Come in." Olivia opened the door and walked in. She pretended not to know Ethan. "You're here, too, Mr. Miller. It's a good thing I made plenty. Stay and try some." It was obvious to Ethan that Olivia had deliberately come in at the nick of time to save him. Her acting had become very convincing. "I have something else I need to do. I won't disturb Mr. Heath's rest anymore." "All right, you can try some next time, then." Olivia put the cake on the table and went to the tea table. "What tea do you want to drink, Mr. Heath?" The fluidity of Olivia's motions entranced Mason as she prepared the tea. Some long-forgotten memories emerged in his mind again. His expression grew more complicated after he ate a piece of the angel food cake. Since she didn't get a response, Olivia turned around to look at Mason and asked again, "Mr. Heath?" Mason snapped back to reality. "I'm sorry, I spaced out." Olivia had eyes that looked like a certain someone. Mason figured the reason why he lost his composure was probably the cake. It tasted very familiar. It reminded him of an old acquaintance. "What about Darjeeling tea?" "Sure." Mason had already recovered to the point where he could take a couple of steps off the bed. Olivia wanted to help him up, but he waved her away. "No need. I can do this myself. I need the exercise, or else I might really become a cripple." "Sure. Although your recovery is coming along well, you're still at an advanced age. Your body is not what it used to be. You need to be careful." "Vanessa, do you have any family?" Olivia shook her head. "I don't know, maybe. But I don't know where they are." "Mr. Heath, are you not going to eat the cake? Does it taste bad?" This was a recipe that Penny taught her. Penny was rarely ever in her right mind. But when she was, she would tell Olivia about the past and about the stories of her and Miss Nat. She told Olivia about the cherry tree next to the gate. She used to love making angel food cakes for Miss Nat. This recipe was something she taught Olivia step by step. "No, it tastes very authentic. It's just like the one I ate many years ago." Olivia didn't think too much about it since she figured that the older generation shared a lot of similar tastes. "I've never seen you eat any cherries. If you don't like them, I won't cook with them anymore." "No, I like it." Mason's expression darkened. It wasn't that he didn't like the cake. It was because he liked it too much, so much so that he didn't even dare to recall memories of that person. Even after so many years, he still had a place in his heart for that person that no one could take. "What's wrong, Mr. Heath?" "I'm fine. Since you made so much, you should eat some, too. You don't have to be too uptight when you're here. I'm probably around the age of your grandfather. If you don't mind, you can call me Grandpa." Olivia was stunned. "How can that be? If anyone else heard it, they would think I was disrespectful to you. It's not the medieval times now, is it? It's just that when I look at you, some memories of mine come rushing back." If only. Chapter 1122. Olivia smelled a story. What happened back then? Mason shook his head. "Nothing. Let's eat." Mason insisted that Olivia had to call him Grandpa at least once. Since there wasn't anyone around, Olivia said softly, "Grandpa Heath." "Good. Good girl." Mason patted her on the head. No matter how you look at him at that moment, Mason looked like a kind old man. There wasn't a trace of the powerful man that he was supposed to be. When she felt Mason's hand on her head, Olivia had a weird feeling. It was because she hadn't been with a family member for so long. She didn't hate the feeling. Mason was discharged after a few days. Since Olivia was his personal doctor, she followed them back to the Heath residence. The fleet of cars drove into a secure compound in Aldenvine. There were guards everywhere. All of them were well-built soldiers. Olivia got out of the car and helped Mason out. Crystal and Tatiana were in another car. As soon as she got out, she muttered, "Why does a lowly doctor like her get to sit in the same car as Dad?" What a joke. Linus glared at her. Crystal no longer dared to be as arrogant as before, so she didn't say anything else. Olivia didn't want to make matters worse, so she pretended not to hear Crystal as she helped Mason into the house. As soon as she entered the yard, she noticed some cherry trees. It was already winter, so there weren't any fruits. The branches were also covered in snow. The snow in the yard was swept clean. There was a mild fragrance of flowers. The Heath residence was a traditional building. It retained the designs of the olden days. A gust of warm air enveloped them as soon as they entered the house. Mason took off his coat and handed it to Olivia. Olivia was looking for a place to hang it when the butler came over. "Just hand it over to me." She helped Mason sit down, and then Tatiana said, "This lady is here to take care of Mason. Edmund, show her around the kitchen." Olivia could feel that Tatiana's attitude had grown more distant. Her introduction made it seem like Olivia was a housekeeper. Olivia didn't say anything as she followed Edmund. She could hear Mason talking as she left. "I told you to let the maids prepare a room. Did you do it?" "Don't worry, Mason. Why would I mess up such a small matter? I've ordered them to do it long ago. I won't mistreat her." After Olivia walked further away, Tatiana muttered, "She's just a personal doctor. I've never seen you care about someone else. It's because she saved my life. What are you thinking about?" Mason rubbed his temples. "Since she's a guest of mine, I expect all of you to treat her with some respect. If any of you bully her again, don't blame me if I become a little harsh." Olivia was following Edmund. He walked pretty quickly. It was clear he was a trained martial artist. Olivia was able to keep up without much trouble. Edmund showed her around the kitchen. "Miss, I'll bring you to your room next." "Thanks." Olivia was still following him. Edmund brought her to a room. Even the windows were of a traditional design. As soon as she entered the room, she caught a whiff of a musty smell, but the room was cleaned thoroughly. Edmund said, "Miss, we don't usually get guests. When I asked the maids to clean the room today, we noticed that the heater had broken down. I've already contacted someone to repair it, but you'll have to tough it out today." The winter nights in Aldenvine were extremely cold, and he expected Olivia to tough it out without a heater. Chapter 1123. Olivia looked up at the butler, saying, "The Heath residence is quite huge, so it must have other guest rooms, right? The Heath family rarely receives guests, so the few guest rooms have always been like that. The heating system broke down because of lack of use, and the other rooms are the same. The night will pass soon enough. I'll get someone to bring over a hot water bag or two later. You won't feel cold with them." Olivia smiled at him. "That works, too. I have something to attend to, so I won't bother you anymore." "It's fine. I have something else to ask you about. Mr. Warner, where is your room?" "In the inner yard." "What's the matter? Why don't we exchange rooms tonight? You can sleep here." Alfred's expression shifted. "That won't do. It's too much trouble." "Why would it be too much trouble? I'm not touching your stuff. I'm just going to sleep there. I don't mind you at all. You can use the hot water bags, too. After all, you probably won't feel too cold with them." Olivia returned to Alfred every single word he had said to her. "Well, I share a room with my wife, so it might be a little troublesome." "Oh, no, that's no trouble at all. Your wife and I are both women, after all. Sorry for making you go through this, Mr. Warner. I'll pack up my things and move into your room." Alfred was stupefied. He thought that Olivia was an easy target to bully, but now, he realized that he had dug his own grave. Carrying her luggage, Olivia walked up to the door. Then, she paused in her tracks and suddenly said, "Mr. Warner, you look like a kind man to me. I don't suppose you were lying to me when you said that there are no empty rooms, right?" "Oh, of course." Olivia gave him a sweet smile. "If you dared to lie to me, Mr. Warner, I'll tell Mr. Heath that you guys have horrible hospitality." The veins on the back of Alfred's hands were bulging. Suppressing his rage, Alfred said, "Miss, you're here to serve Mr. Heath. Did you seriously think that you're a guest? In the end, you're not any different from us. You're just a lowly servant who came to serve others." Olivia started, "I can see that you lack a certain understanding of your identity, Mr. Warner." Olivia's voice was cold. Firstly, I am the private physician who came here by Mr. Linus' invitation. I am only in charge of taking care of Mr. Heath's health. You said that I am here to serve, so by that logic, do the doctors serve you every time you get sick and go to the hospital? Secondly, many people want me to treat them, and they will offer huge sums to that end. It's all up to me whether I want to treat them or not. Even billionaires are scared of offending me, let alone a minor butler like you. It doesn't work the other way around. Lastly, the master of this house has the last name Heather. I wonder who it was who didn't like me, you or your master. I can leave right now, but after I leave, don't even think about asking me to come back. Olivia's words were harsh. Alfred had been working in the Heath residence for decades. So, other than the master of the house, Alfred's status was one of the most important ones in the house. Everyone would treat Alfred with due respect. But this woman from nowhere was bold enough to keep challenging him. Girl, you don't look that old. Who gave you the right to behave like this? Olivia sneered. Old man, you don't look that young either. If you can't even understand basic respect, how did you ever become a butler? Who raised you? What's with that attitude? My family only taught me how to deal with people. Lowly tail wagers like you are not worth my time. With that, Olivia turned around and started walking with her suitcase behind her. Go and have fun. I'm not going to bother you anymore. Crystal had stopped causing trouble, but now, someone else was giving her trouble instead. Seeing that Olivia was about to leave, Alfred panicked. He hastily took a few steps forward. Wait. I just commented on you a little. Where are you going? Chapter 1124. I'm going back where I came from. Aren't you worried about paying liquidated damages? Alfred asked hastily. Olivia chuckled. Don't worry, I can still afford that tiny sum. You can't leave. You just want a room with heating, right? I can get that arranged for you. It's no problem at all. Tatiana only asked that Olivia have an uncomfortable stay. She didn't ask Alfred to drive Olivia out. If Olivia truly left, how was Alfred going to explain himself? Olivia was aware of Alfred's thoughts. She hated people like him who overestimated their authority. Olivia crossed her arms as she looked at Alfred coldly. What's the matter? There weren't any rooms before this, but now they appeared out of nowhere. Mr. Warner, do you take me for a fool? Or do you think that you can bully me however you like? Alfred said sullenly, it's just a room, so you're causing too much of a fuss. Do you seriously think that you're a rich young lady or something? You should be grateful that you have a place to stay, but you're being so picky. Before Alfred finished speaking, a figure strode up to them. Alfred hadn't even greeted Linus before the latter stormed up to him. Raising his hand, Linus delivered a slap right across Alfred's face. How dare you? Who do you think you are to talk to Vanessa like that? Alfred was so startled that his face turned pale. He trembled violently. Am I, Mr. Linus? What? Linus was constantly on the battlefield, and he had the blood of many on his hands. As the murderous intent emanated from Linus, Alfred almost lost his balance, and he was about to fall to his knees. Alfred hastily spoke up. Mr. Linus, please lend us your insight. I arranged a room for this lady, but she nitpicked the room. I told her that I would change rooms for her, but she insulted me instead. She said that even billionaires are scared of offending her, and the Heath family is nothing in comparison. She said that she would stay here if she liked, but if she doesn't like it, she'll leave right away. When Olivia heard those words, she couldn't help but smile in exasperation. She had never seen such a shameless person before. Spotting the smile on Olivia's lips, Alfred continued exaggerating his testimony. Look, Mr. Linus, she's smiling even at times like this. She even said that I'm an old man who doesn't deserve to be a butler. I've been working in the Heath residence for so many years, so why is this lady the only one nitpicking me? Despite everything, I'm still part of the Heath family. If she said something like that, she would be insulting the whole Heath family too. When Alfred finished saying those words, Linus raised his hand again and delivered a slap to Alfred's other cheek. True, you are not worthy of being a butler. Alfred widened his eyes. He couldn't believe that Linus had said those words. Mr. Linus, I've been working hard for decades in the Heath family, and I never slacked off. But today, I can't believe you're defending an outsider like her instead. Linus took out his phone. The screen showed that a call was ongoing, and the contact number was labeled as none other than Vanessa. Alfred's expression shifted. In other words, Linus had heard everything he said, but he had even made false accusations just now. Alfred thought, that wench. I can't believe how cunning she is. She tricked me. Mr. Warner, to be honest, I also thought that you were working hard and being sincere about it. But today, I finally realized that you were lying to everyone. My father and I treated this guest with utmost respect, but look how you treated her. Ah, yes, what a good butler you are. Alfred kneeled right away. Mr. Linus, I can explain. Explain. Ha! Linus lifted his leg and delivered a fierce kick to Alfred's shoulder. Of course, Alfred couldn't withstand that huge force. With a yelp, he toppled into the snow. Chapter 1125. If I hadn't heard you saying those words with my ears, I wouldn't have known how good you are at making up stories. Alfred immediately got up. He kneeled as he began slapping himself. It's all my fault. I'm sorry, miss, please forgive me. I should have known better. Mr. Linus, please have mercy on me, even if it's just because I've worked hard for the family for so many years. I'm getting too old, Linus replied. Since you're getting too old, you should let someone else be the butler. We didn't pay you a high salary every day just to bully others at home. When Alfred heard that he was getting fired, he sobbed even louder. He earned a lot as the butler of the Heath family, and he even had lots of ambiguous income. He wouldn't want to let go of a wonderful job like that. Tatiana's voice rang out behind them. What's going on? Tatiana looked at Olivia, faking a warm expression as she said, Vanessa, you're a guest in this house. If the household staff are lacking in any aspect, just tell me. But Alfred was just showing you your room. How did things turn out like this? If Olivia was still the weak person she had been before, she would have felt that Tatiana was a gentle and kind woman. But judging from their recent interactions, Tatiana seemed to be on a level higher than Crystal. Perhaps Tatiana didn't like how Olivia was the reason Crystal had to be slapped, and now Mason was awake as well. Tatiana was the classic ingrate. When she needed someone, she would beg them for help. But when she didn't need someone anymore, she would just kick them aside. Sadly, Mason and Linus had high opinions of Olivia. Tatiana was smart in the sense that she wasn't as brash as Crystal. She had instructed Alfred to secretly mistreat Olivia. Perhaps because Olivia was so submissive in front of Mason, Tatiana thought that Olivia was an easy target. She didn't expect Olivia to cause such a huge ruckus that Alfred wouldn't be able to get away unscathed. Olivia was quite curious to find out if Alfred would drag Tatiana down with him just to protect himself. It should be quite a sight to see dogs fighting each other. Mrs. Heath, this is my first time here, but for some reason, I somehow offended this butler. He arranged a room without heating for me, and he even told me to just bear with it. I'm just a feeble woman, and my body is weak enough already. I can endure sleeping in a place that's like -70 degrees, but I fear that if I get sick, I won't be able to take care of Mr. Heath anymore. Olivia had a pitiful look on her face. I simply suggested that I swap rooms with him, but this butler began to mock me. He said that I come here to serve people, not to be a rich young lady. He said that I was causing too much of a fuss. Mason, who had just arrived in haste, overheard Olivia's words. When he saw Olivia's pitiful expression, he flew into a rage. He immediately strode over them, slapping and then kicking Alfred. After all, Mason's achievements were earned on the battlefield. He was still strong in his old age, and he was at least as powerful as Linus. In an instant, Alfred began to bleed from his nose and mouth. You bastard! I kept telling you that Vanessa is a guest I invited. Is this how you treat honored guests? Alfred had no idea that he had made such a huge mistake. He kept bowing to Mason in apology. I'm so sorry, Mr. Heath. I had no idea. It was Mrs. Heath. Tatiana glanced coldly at Alfred. Then, she spoke up. Alfred, didn't I tell you to take good care of Vanessa? She is a young woman, but you must not mistreat her regardless. Is this how you carry out orders? I trusted you for so many years, and I even promoted you to the position of butler. You've greatly disappointed me. Her short speech served as a warning to Alfred to remember her kindness to him. Of course, Alfred didn't dare to push the blame on Tatiana anymore. Chapter 1126. Alfred was aware that Tatiana was trying to sacrifice a pawn to secure the big picture. He had underestimated Olivia's importance to Mason and Linus. If things went on like this, even Tatiana would get the blame. Abandoning Alfred was a better choice than getting Tatiana dragged down with him. Alfred was at a loss. Tatiana was Mason's wife, after all. Even if Mason was angry at her, they would reconcile soon enough. But if Alfred exposed Tatiana, he would be offending the entire Heath family. When that happened, he might be chased out. So, Alfred took all the blame right away. Yes, Mrs. Heath did remind me to do that. I was doing a good job at first, but the room didn't have a heating system. I contacted the repairman right away, but he wasn't free to come over today. This is totally out of my control. My attitude was lacking back then, and I should be punished for mistreating the young lady. Mr. Heath, Mr. Linus, please forgive me. As expected, after Alfred said that, Tatiana had a much better expression on her face. It was only then that she begged, Alfred has been working with us for so many years, and he has always worked diligently. He committed a mistake today, but I'm sure he can learn from his mistakes. It's a good thing that nothing serious happened. Crystal muttered, that's right. It's just a lack of heating, right? It's just a minor issue, so let's not make mountains out of molehills. Mr. Warner has worked hard for us, and he's like family to us. Dad, Linus, you two were just too harsh. Now that you've beat him up and scolded him, are you going to fire him too? A minor issue, Mason sneered. All right, then, let's turn off the heating system in Tatiana's and Crystal's rooms and see how they take it. If the heating system is broken, just change rooms. Do we not even have a spare room in our house? Even if every unit was broken, what's wrong with letting her stay with someone else? Does she even have to sleep in a cold room at all? This old man must have gone blind and started taking matters into his own hands. The incident that happened today can't be the first, nor will it be the last. Alfred, talk to the finance department and get your salary for this month sorted out. As for other matters, compensation will be made. My family refuses to hire you any longer. Alfred was completely panicking now. Grabbing Tatiana's leg, he begged, Mrs. Heath, please put in a good word for me. I sincerely don't want to leave the Heath residence. Tatiana didn't expect her single sentence to cause Alfred to lose his job. She hastily said, Mason, that's too harsh a punishment. Alfred just made a small mistake, so it's not worth the punishment. I am responsible for this incident as well. I was the one who failed to handle it well, so please let Alfred off just this once. Crystal said, that's right, Dad. Look how you treated Mr. Warner just for the sake of an outsider. Your reputation will be tainted if word of this gets out. Mason treated his reputation quite seriously. Taking a deep breath, Mason said, all right, since you want to stay in the Heath residence, you cannot be the butler anymore. From today onward, you're demoted to janitor. You're in charge of cleaning up, trimming the plants, and doing odd jobs. Of course, Alfred didn't want to do that. But when he saw Tatiana giving him a look, he nodded. All right, understood. Mason looked at Linus. Make arrangements for Vanessa. Understood, father. It's cold out here. Mr. Heath, I'll help you inside. Olivia hastily tried to please Mason. When Olivia and Mason had left, Crystal stomped her feet. Upset, she cursed, that cunning vixen. Keep it down. Are you trying to cause even more trouble? Crystal muttered, why are Dad and Linus treating that wench so nicely? I'm even suspecting that she's Dad's illegitimate daughter now. By the way, Mom, didn't Dad have a wife before you? Chapter 1127. Tatiana's expression darkened at the mention of that matter. Shut up. You knew very well that it's taboo to talk about that around your dad. What sort of taboo is that? My dad must have abandoned his family for wealth and glory back then. After that, he slowly climbed up the ranks with you. To be honest, my dad is quite the jerk. Nonsense. Who told you all that? Crystal stuck out her tongue. Ma, my grandma told me that. Your grandma is spouting nonsense. Times are different now. Now, it's the Benson family trying to gain your dad's favor. You should be aware of your dad's temper. If you mention this matter in front of him, you'll get slapped for sure. Crystal said, I know. I'm just asking. That woman is so normal looking, and she doesn't look like my dad at all. Don't take it to heart, Mom. Yeah, you've seen how things turned out. Your dad and your brother were too good to that wench, and they would even fire Alfred without hesitation. You'd better be careful around that woman, too. She's very smart. You're no match for her. Crystal snorted. So what if she's smart? She's still an orphan without a family. She's a commoner who can never catch up to me. Alright, enough of that. Just behave around your dad for the next few days, and don't get into any conflict with that woman. Got it, Mom. About Mr. Warner, your dad is still mad about it, so we can only let Alfred endure for a while longer. That woman will soon be forced off her high horse. A vicious look appeared in Tatiana's eyes. Olivia brought Mason back to the living room. Mason looked at Olivia with a remorseful gaze, saying, I'm sorry you had to be mistreated again, child. Mason knew very well who had brought about this incident, but Tatiana was his wife. He couldn't just humiliate Tatiana in public, so he played along and put all the blame on Alfred instead. It's okay, I don't mind it at all. You're just too soft. Olivia smiled. Letting go of the wheelchair, she began to make tea for him. Mr. Heath, I'm not soft at all. If I were truly soft, I wouldn't have gotten Mr. Linus to come over. I didn't mean to blow it out of proportion, but if I endured it today, I might have to endure even worse things in the Heath residence in the future. You and Mr. Linus are always very busy, so I can't make you two come over every day just to defend me. Moreover, if I don't want to be at a disadvantage, leaving is the best option for me. But if I leave, Mr. Linus might have to go through the trouble of getting me back here. If this goes on, we'll only go back to square one. So, I'd rather make a huge fuss out of it. With this incident as an example, even if someone wants to bully me in the future, they won't dare to. Mason smiled comfortingly. You're quite smart. It's a pity that you're a woman. If you're a man, what happens if I'm a man? You'll be able to achieve great things on the battlefield. But these days, women aren't inferior to men in any way. There are quite a lot of female diplomats, too. Child, do you have any needs in the future? You have great potential, and I don't want you to waste that potential. Olivia shook her head. I just want to be a casual doctor. I don't have such great ambitions. All right, as you wish. Olivia looked at Mason. Mr. Heath, why are you so nice to me? You didn't have to go to such lengths for my sake in the incident just now. I share the same opinions as you. I'd either refrain from fighting or beat them up so badly that they won't be able to fight back. I don't want them to be a bother in the future. I think we'll get along quite well, child. Chapter 1128. Mason looked gently at Olivia. Your temperament matches mine quite well, and your eyes. My eyes. Olivia looked at Mason with a curious gaze. Nothing. I hope you do a good job, child. I won't mistreat you. In the end, Mason didn't continue his sentence. Only her eyes looked like that person. Olivia Fordham should be the one who looked the most similar to that person. Back then, Ethan had gotten married on his own, and Mason had no idea who the bride was. Later on, when Ethan attended the awards ceremony with Olivia, Mason was shocked to see Olivia's face. Mason even asked someone to investigate in private. Olivia's father was Jeff Fordham, and the Fordhams were Aldenvine locals. Mason was sure that they had nothing to do with that woman. Olivia felt that Mason had many things he didn't mention. She wondered what it was that Mason chose not to say. It was snowing heavily outside. Olivia accompanied Mason as she made nutritious food for him. She made tea and cakes for him as well. At first, she had approached Mason for Jack's and Ethan's sake. She was looking for a chance to finish him off. There was no better chance to do it than to stay by his side and do it without him realizing it. But later on, she was sincerely taking care of him. Perhaps it was because she had only ever received love from Jeff in her youth. She was more caring toward old men. She felt some sort of natural intimacy between them. If not, she wouldn't have stayed behind even after Crystal had challenged her time and again. At night, Linus prepared a room for Olivia in the inner yard. The room was quite close to both Linus and Mason's rooms. It wasn't just spacious, but it was also quite clean as well. Olivia was about to fall asleep when she heard Crystal making a fuss. "Dad, why did you get someone to turn off the heating in my room?" Olivia thought that Mason didn't mean what he said just now, but unexpectedly, he did what he said he would do. Mason said with a cold voice, "Since you two think that turning off the heating system for a night is nothing, you two can experience it for yourselves. What's wrong? If other people are allowed to sleep without heating, why can't you?" Crystal immediately retorted, "Who does she think she is? How can she compare to us?" "Crystal." Mason's voice grew even lower. It was obvious that he was truly mad now. Olivia closed the door. It no longer mattered to her whether Crystal managed to get the heating system running or not. Crystal should bear the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, in Mason's room, Tatiana patted Crystal on the shoulder. "Crystal, I'll talk to him. You should go back to your room." Crystal turned around, wiping her tears as she left the room. When Tatiana closed the door, the gentle look on her face was gone. "Mason, are you seriously telling me to sleep in my daughter's room? And you won't allow them to turn on the heating?" "Yes. Do you seriously think that I can't figure out who planned the incident today? Alfred has been working here for so long, so how would he dare to be so disrespectful to our guests? Would you dare say that this has nothing to do with you? I'm being nice to you by not exposing you in front of other people, but who do you think you are? If people hear that you're causing trouble for a young lady, what will they think of you?" Tatiana raised her voice. "Then tell me, she's just a young lady, so why are you being so nice to her? Don't tell me you're thinking of getting her to marry Linus." Mason frowned. "Why would you think that? I can't think of any position for her other than your daughter-in-law. She saved your life, after all. But I'm telling you, I only have those two children. Their spouses will have to be the best people in the world, not some random woman who came from the wild. My son is a commander, so only the most noble woman in the world is worthy of him." Chapter 1129. Mason was nice to Olivia, but he had never thought of letting her be his daughter-in-law. He felt upset when he saw Tatiana being so against the idea. She was behaving as if Olivia were some sort of trash. "Vanessa is a famous miracle doctor. She's not that bad. Didn't you hear what Crystal said? Vanessa already had a child, and the baby had green eyes. Her husband is probably from some other race. My son wouldn't fancy some second-hand trash who comes with a child." Mason slammed his fist on the table. "Tatiana, you'd better watch your mouth. I've never had such intentions. I was just being kind to her since she has saved my life, and she doesn't have a family of her own. Moreover, with her current fame, she doesn't lack any money." She was right. No matter how rich someone is, they'll still be afraid of getting sick. They don't even dare to offend her lest she refuses to perform surgery on them. She didn't have to come and treat me at all. Do you think that she's dying to stay here or something? Seeing that Mason was furious, Tatiana finally softened her voice. "Mason, I was just worried that you might have such thoughts. If you don't, then that's fine. Come on, don't be mad. We're a married couple, so do you still not know me well enough? Are you truly crueling enough to make me sleep in that cold room tonight?" Mason said, "If you don't lead by example, your daughter won't learn to respect others either. My decision is final. I will never take back my words." No matter what Tatiana said, she couldn't get Mason to change his mind. In the end, she snorted. "Mason, you're something." She slammed her door on her way out. Crystal had truly taken after her mother in terms of temper. She pretended to be a gentle and gracious woman in front of others, but she was still an arrogant young lady at the core. Mason let out a light sigh. He walked up to the study desk, retrieving a painting from a secret compartment in the desk. The painting depicted a person. Even though it was a monochrome painting, the person in the painting was very lifelike. In the painting, a young woman was sitting on a branch as she gazed up at the sky. She looked quite mischievous and adorable. Mason whispered, "Are you still alive, Nat? I didn't mean to leave you behind back then. You must be so mad at me, right?" The paper was already yellowing. Reaching out, Mason kept stroking the woman's face. His thoughts traveled back in time to that turbulent age. Olivia took a nice bath. She was drying her hair when she received a request to start a video call with Ethan. As soon as the call went through, Ethan noticed that Olivia was in the bathroom. He lowered his voice, saying, "Liv." He sounded as pitiful as he could get. "I can't hold you tonight. Did you miss me?" Olivia leaned against the basin with her bathrobe casually hanging on her body. A large portion of her chest was exposed. After giving birth thrice, her waist was still slender and smooth without any stretch marks. But her chest had gotten much larger than before. So, she looked extra seductive with her chest half covered. "Nope, you're so cruel. Ha, aren't you quite busy these days?" Olivia peered at the background of Ethan's screen. He was still in the brightly lit study. Olivia felt that it wasn't a bad idea for her to be away. Ethan would then focus all his effort on work. "Yes, I'm quite busy, but I miss you even more. It's not safe for me outside. If Yale finds out my identity, I'll become a burden to you." "You were never a burden to me." Ethan paused for a moment. "I have 2 more days to go before I can see you. How am I supposed to survive this?" Olivia chuckled. 2 days. How are you so sure? The Heath family will be holding a small-scale banquet in 2 days. I'll be attending it. Chapter 1130. What banquet? I suppose it's a banquet to find a wife for Linus. Ethan looked longingly at Olivia. "I can't wait to see you again." Olivia ended the call. She was more curious about how Tatiana and Crystal were going to spend the night. She thought that Mason was only saying that on a whim, but unexpectedly, he meant what he said. Tatiana and Crystal, who were forced to sleep in a room without heating, couldn't quite take it anymore. Throwing a tantrum, Crystal said, "Is Dad crazy? He's forcing us to live in the cold just because of that wench. I don't know if he did it for that wench, but he doesn't allow anyone to challenge his power. I was too careless about this matter. I didn't expect that wench to be brave enough to cause such a ruckus." Tatiana clenched her fists tightly. She was just trying to inconvenience Olivia in secret. It was just a small matter, but Tatiana didn't expect Olivia to report it straight to Mason. Anyone could see that Olivia wanted Mason to do something about it. As the head of the family, Mason would have to punish Tatiana and Crystal so that he could make it up to Olivia. This wench is quite smart. "Mom, are you just going to let her lord it over us?" "HMPH, we'll have to endure it no matter what. Your dad and your brother think of her as a savior, so we shouldn't get into a conflict with her for the moment. Ethan is the important one here, not her." Tatiana placed some hot water bags under the blanket. Then, she maxed out the heating appliances near them. The room gradually turned warmer. Mason only said that the heating system shouldn't be turned on. He didn't say that they couldn't get warmth from other sources. Holding the heating appliances, Tatiana put on a cold smile. "It's about time you get married." "Mom, I do want to get married, but he doesn't want to marry me. He even hit me on purpose. He just doesn't want to marry me." Ethan was the only one Crystal would submit to. "I can't just grab him and lock him up, can I?" "Silly child. There's a way to deal with disobedient men." "What is it?" Tatiana gestured for Crystal to come closer. Crystal moved her ear closer. "Mom, just hurry up and tell me." "Men, I tell you," Tatiana whispered her plans into Crystal's ear. Crystal blushed. "Does this work, Mom? If it doesn't, where do you think Linus came from? Sometimes, women have to take the initiative to secure their happiness. Just leave it to me. I'll make him marry you without any complaints." Crystal nodded. "If I can get married to him, my life will be worth it." "How useless," Tatiana scoffed. "You're not that different from me, Mom. Dad was more than 10 years older than you back then, but you still got married to him without any hesitation. You know nothing. Your dad was handsome and composed when he was younger. I fell in love with him at first sight. Older men are wonderful. You're so shameless, Mom. Tatiana poked at Crystal's head with a finger. If you were half as smart as I am, you would have gotten him by now. You wouldn't have to follow him around and try to please him like you're doing now. You can't be too proud in front of men, and you have to show some weakness sometimes. Look at his ex-wife. She must be a feeble little wench. That's how she managed to have a firm grip on his heart. Crystal said, "Got it, Mom. I'll dress up properly starting tomorrow. Just relax and wait for the day you get married to Ethan." Tatiana smiled coldly. As soon as she had locked onto a man, he would not be able to escape. It was the same with Mason, and it would be the same with Ethan as well.